The morning my life fell apart began with a simple sound: the doorbell. I was in the kitchen, wiping down the counters after breakfast. My husband, Mark, had already left for work, and I had just waved goodbye to our 7-year-old daughter, Emma, as the school bus pulled away. The house was quiet, a silence I had become accustomed to over the past year. The distance between Mark and me had grown from a small crack into a vast canyon. I thought it was the stress of his job, his long hours. I tried harder, keeping the house spotless, making his favorite meals, ensuring his life was as easy as possible. I now know that my efforts were in vain. He had already moved on, and he was planning to make sure I had nothing left. The man at the door was a courier. He handed me a thick, heavy envelope. It felt ominous in my hands. There was no return address, but the logo of a law firm was embossed in the corner. My heart began to race. With trembling fingers, I tore it open. The words inside were like physical blows. Petition for dissolution of marriage. My husband was suing me for divorce. He accused me of being an unfit mother, emotionally unstable and neglectful. He was asking for full sole custody of our daughter, Emma. He demanded the house, the cars, all of our savings and investments. He argued that since he was the sole financial provider, I was entitled to nothing. I stood there in the hallway, the papers shaking in my hand, reading the same sentences over and over, hoping I had misunderstood. But I had not. The man I had loved for over a decade, the father of my child, was systematically trying to erase me from our life. I don't know how long I stood there. The world had narrowed to the cold, legal language on those pages. Failure. The word echoed in my mind. Was I a failure? I had a career once, a promising one in interior design. But when Emma was born, Mark and I decided it would be best if I stayed home. He was rising quickly in his company, and his salary could support us. I was happy to do it. I loved being there for every milestone, every school play, every scraped knee. I built my world around my family. And now, that world was being declared a failure. Mark came home early that evening. He found me sitting at the kitchen table, the papers spread out before me. My eyes were red and swollen from crying. He didn't seem surprised. He placed his briefcase on the counter and looked at me with a cold, detached expression. "Sarah," he said, his voice flat, "I see you got the papers." "What is this, Mark?" My voice was a broken whisper. "How can you say these things? Unfit? Neglectful? What have I ever done to make you think that?" "It's not about what you've done, Sarah. It's about what you are," he said, his words deliberate and sharp. "You're not the woman I married. You're weak. You're emotional. Emma needs stability. She needs a strong role model. She needs to be in an environment where she can thrive, not one where she has to tiptoe around her mother's moods." "My moods?" I was incredulous. "My only mood has been trying to keep this family together while you've been checked out for a year." "See," he said, a smug, cruel smile touching his lips. "This is what I'm talking about. Hysterics. This is not the behavior of a stable parent. My lawyer has compiled a significant amount of evidence. You will not win this, Sarah. It's better if you just accept that. Sign the papers, walk away, and let Emma have a chance at a normal life with me." He walked away then, leaving me shattered at the table. The cruelty of his plan was breathtaking. He wasn't just leaving me. He was trying to destroy me completely and take my child away. The terror of losing Emma was a physical pain, a sharp, constant ache in my chest. That night, I didn't sleep. I crept into Emma's room and watched her sleep, her peaceful face illuminated by her nightlight. I cried silent tears, praying for a miracle, for some way to prove to the world that I was a good mother. The next morning, I began the desperate search for a lawyer. I quickly discovered that good lawyers require large retainers, thousands of dollars, that I did not have. I logged into our joint bank account, the one I used for groceries and household bills. The screen showed a balance of zero. Zero. I refreshed the page, thinking it was a mistake. It wasn't. I scrolled through the transaction history and saw that over the past 3 months, Mark had made a series of large transfers, draining the account completely. The final transfer was dated 2 days before I was served the divorce papers. He had planned this with military precision. He had financially stranded me. I had no savings in my own name. He had even taken my name off his credit cards months ago, claiming it was for better rewards. I was utterly trapped. In a state of panic, I called my oldest friend, Clara. Through sobs, I explained the situation. She was horrified. She immediately reached out to a contact she had and called me back with a name, Mr. Henderson, a lawyer who specialized in family law and was known for being fair and compassionate. She said he sometimes worked on a sliding scale. It was my only hope. I met Mr. Henderson in his small, book-lined office the next day. He was a kind-faced man in his late 50s, with gentle eyes. He listened to my story without interruption, his hands steepled under his chin. When I finished, he let out a long, slow breath. "Sarah," he began, his voice calm and measured, "what your husband is doing is, unfortunately, a tactic I've seen before. It's called burning the village. He's destroying the landscape so you have no resources to fight back. The goal is to make you so desperate that you give up and surrender, or to make you appear so unstable that the court has no choice but to side with him. This will be a very difficult case. He has resources, and from the sound of it, he's willing to use them ruthlessly." "But the things he's saying aren't true," I pleaded. "I'm a good mother. Emma is my whole world." "I believe you," Mr. Henderson said. "But in a courtroom, belief isn't enough. We need evidence. We need to counter his narrative. Let's start by looking at what he's filed." He opened a large folder. Inside were the evidence Mark had compiled. There were photos of our house in a state of disarray, piles of unwashed dishes, toys scattered across the living room floor, a mountain of laundry in the basket. "These were taken when I had the flu," I exclaimed, my voice rising with indignation. "I was sick for 4 days. I could barely get out of bed. I asked Mark to help, and he said he was too busy with work. He refused to hire a cleaner. He took these photos on purpose." Mr. Henderson nodded, making a note. "We can argue that, but it's your word against his, and to a judge who doesn't know you, it can look like a pattern of neglect." He then showed me credit card statements. There were charges for expensive restaurants, high-end electronics, and luxury hotel stays, all on a card that had my name on it. "I've never seen this card before in my life," I said, my stomach churning. He must have opened it in my name. I never made these purchases. "Again, we can state that, but it will be difficult to prove," he said gravely. "The most damaging piece of evidence, however, was a report from a child psychologist named Dr. Eleanor Gray. The report stated that Dr. Gray had conducted covert observations of me and Emma in public settings over the past 2 months. Her conclusion was that I was emotionally distant, prone to anxiety, and created an unpredictable environment for my daughter. I felt like I was going to be sick. I've never met this woman. I don't know who she is. How can she say these things? Her credentials seem to be in order, Mr. Henderson said. She's a licensed psychologist. The court will give her testimony significant weight. She describes specific incidents, like a time at the park where you were distracted and unresponsive when Emma fell. That's not what happened, I cried. I was looking at my phone for 1 second because I was checking the time. Emma tricked, and I ran to her immediately. I comforted her. She was fine in 2 minutes. I understand, Mr. Henderson said softly, but this is the narrative they are constructing. An unstable, neglectful mother. We have our work cut out for us. Returning home after that meeting was like walking into a war zone. Mark had moved his things into the guest room. He acted as if I were a ghost, invisible and insignificant. But in front of Emma, he was a different person. He became super dad, arriving early from work, bringing gifts, a new doll, a fancy art set, and a brand new top-of-the-line tablet. "Look what Daddy got for you, Princess," he said one evening, his voice dripping with false cheer. "This is much better than that old, broken one you have. It has all the latest games." Emma's eyes lit up. "Wow! Thank you, Daddy." He glanced at me over her head, a look of pure triumph in his eyes. "When you live with me, you can have new toys like this all the time. We'll have so much fun." His words were a poison, slowly seeping into my daughter's mind. He was buying her affection. And I had no way to compete. He also began to systematically undermine my authority. If I made dinner, he would taste it and say, "It's a bit bland, isn't it, Emma? Maybe we should order pizza." If I tried to help Emma with her homework, he would swoop in and say, "Let me handle this, Sarah. The way they teach math now is different. You'll just confuse her." I felt myself shrinking, becoming smaller and more unsure in my own home. I started to doubt myself. Was I a bad cook? Was I bad at teaching? The constant criticism was chipping away at my confidence. I could see the effect it was having on Emma. She became quieter, more withdrawn. She would look from me to her father with a confused expression. She still clung to me at times, seeking the comfort only a mother can give, but other times she would pull away, especially after Mark had spent time whispering to her in another room. One night, after a particularly difficult day where Mark had mocked me for crying, I went to check on Emma. She was fast asleep, her breathing soft and even. As I went to tuck her in, I saw the corner of her old, cracked tablet peeking out from under her pillow. She was clutching it in her sleep. I found it strange. Why was she hiding this old, broken thing when she had a beautiful new one on her desk? Yeah, my grief and exhaustion. I dismissed it as a child's sentimental attachment. I had no idea that this broken piece of technology held the key to my salvation. The first court hearing was a disaster. Mark's lawyer, a sharp, expensive-looking woman named Attorney Crane, was brutal. She presented the photos, the credit card statements, and the report from Dr. Gray as irrefutable facts. She painted a picture of me as a lazy, financially irresponsible, and emotionally volatile woman who was a detriment to her own child. Mr. Henderson did his best to object and to present my side, but without concrete evidence to counter theirs, his arguments felt weak. Then Dr. Eleanor Gray took the stand. She was every bit as polished and professional as her report suggested. She spoke with calm authority, using psychological terms that sounded impressive and definitive. She described the incident at the park, framing my natural concern as hysterical overreaction. She talked about another time at a grocery store where I had firmly told Emma she couldn't have candy, and Emma had cried. Dr. Gray labeled this as an inability to set gentle and consistent boundaries. Every single normal parenting moment was twisted into something pathological. I sat there, my hands clenched in my lap, feeling the judge's eyes on me, judging me, believing this fabricated version of who I was. When it was my turn to testify, I was a nervous wreck. Mr. Henderson guided me gently through my story. I explained about being sick when the photos were taken. I explained that I had no knowledge of the credit card. I tried to explain the real context behind the incidents Dr. Gray described, but when Attorney Crane cross-examined me, she was like a predator. So, Mrs. Miller, you expect the court to believe that your husband, a successful and busy man, took time out of his day to stage photos of a dirty house? She asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. I think... The judge entered, and the room fell. Silent, he began to speak, summarizing the case. His words were neutral, but I could sense the direction they were heading. He mentioned the compelling photographic evidence, the troubling financial records, and the expert and unbiased testimony of Dr. Gray. My heart was a stone in my chest. I closed my eyes, waiting for the final blow. And then a small, clear voice cut through the heavy air. Your Honor! Everyone turned. There, standing near the courtroom doors, was my Emma. She was still in her school uniform, her small frame looking tiny and vulnerable in the large, formal room. My heart leaped into my throat. What was she doing here? Mark shot to his feet. Emma! This is not a place for children. Be quiet. But the judge, an older man with kind eyes, held up a hand. Let the child speak. Emma walked forward, her steps echoing. She was clutching her old, cracked tablet. She looked directly at the judge, her small face set with a determination I had never seen before. Your Honor, she said, her voice trembling but clear. Can I show you something? It's something my mommy doesn't know about. Attorney Crane erupted. Your Honor, I object. This is highly irregular. A child cannot present evidence. Mr. Henderson stood up. Your Honor, this proceeding is about the future of this very child. If she has something to say that she believes is important, I think the court has a duty to hear it. The judge looked from Emma's earnest face to my terrified one, and then to Mark's furious one. He seemed to be weighing a great decision. The objection is overruled, the judge said finally. I will allow it. Clerk, please assist the young lady. A court clerk gently took the tablet from Emma and connected it to the court's display system. The large screens on the walls flickered to life, showing the home screen of Emma's tablet. The entire courtroom held its breath. Mark looked pale, his confidence gone, replaced by a look of sheer panic. I had no idea what was happening. Emma pointed to a video file. The clerk clicked on it, and Emma, with a deep breath, pressed play. The video was shaky, filmed from a low angle, as if the tablet had been propped up on a shelf or a piece of furniture. It was our living room, and then Mark walked into the frame. He wasn't alone. Dr. Eleanor Gray was with him. She was not in a professional suit, but in casual clothes. The video had no clear video, but the audio was crystal clear. "Are you sure this is going to work, Mark?" Dr. Gray's voice asked. "The psychological evaluation is one thing, but the court needs more." "Of course it will work," Mark's voice replied, smooth and confident. "The judge will see the photos. The credit card bills I set up in her name and your professional opinion. It's a slam dunk. I've already transferred most of the money into your account. Once the judge grants me custody, we sell this house, and we can start our new life. Emma will come around eventually." "And what about Sarah?" Dr. Gray asked. Mark laughed, a cold, ugly sound. "What about her? She's weak. She has no money, no job. She'll be destroyed. And when she has her inevitable breakdown in court, it will just confirm everything you've said about her. It's the perfect plan." The video ended. The silence in the courtroom was absolute, and then it erupted into chaos. I sat there, stunned, my hand over my mouth. The truth was so much uglier than I had ever imagined. It wasn't just a divorce. It was a malicious, premeditated conspiracy to commit fraud and kidnap my child. Dr. Gray wasn't an impartial expert. She was Mark's accomplice and his new partner. The judge's face was a mask of thunderous rage. He slammed his gavel down repeatedly. "Order! Order in this court!" He looked at Mark and Dr. Gray, who were both staring at the floor, their faces white with shock and shame. "This is the most egregious case of fraud and attempted parental alienation I have ever witnessed in my courtroom," the judge boomed. "The petition for divorce is dismissed with prejudice. Full and sole custody of the minor child, Emma Miller, is hereby granted to the mother, Sarah Miller. The marital home and all remaining assets are awarded to Mrs. Miller. Furthermore, I am ordering the immediate arrest of Mark Miller and Eleanor Gray for conspiracy." Fraud and perjury. Security officers moved quickly to handcuff Mark and Dr. Gray. As he was led away, Mark didn't even look at me. The fight had gone out of him completely. The courtroom slowly emptied, leaving me, Mr. Henderson, and Emma. I knelt down and pulled my daughter into the tightest hug of my life, sobbing tears of relief and gratitude. "Emma, my brave, brave girl, you saved us." Later, I asked her about the video. She told me that she had always felt uncomfortable around Dr. Gray. She had seen her with her father when I wasn't home, and she didn't like the way they talked about me. She had started hiding her old tablet around the house to record them, because she knew it was a secret and she wanted to have proof to protect me. She was afraid to tell me because her father had told her it would only make things worse, so she kept her secret, waiting for the right moment to reveal it. Her intuition and courage, far beyond her years, had exposed the truth and given us our freedom back. We moved out of the big pulled house and into a smaller, cozier home filled with light and laughter. The money that was returned to me allowed me to start my own small interior design business. I was finally building a life for myself, on my own terms. Mark and Dr. Gray were convicted and sent to prison. And every day, I look at my daughter, my heroine, and I am reminded that the greatest strength often comes from the smallest and most loving of hearts.